didn't complete the necessary State Department training on how to handle classified information. She's the one who told the FBI during a 3.5-hour interview when she was not under oath she couldn't recall or remember 39 times. And she even appeared to blame her concussion at one point. And she's the person who decided to lie after it was discovered what she had done. Hillary Clinton has had plenty of opportunities to tell the truth to you, the American people. She's refused to do so. Take a look at the many times she has changed her story. By the way, this is something the mainstream media is not playing for you. Watch.
The laws and regulations in effect when I was Secretary of State allowed me to use my email for work. That is undisputed. It clearly wasn't the best choice. And I take responsibility for that decision. I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead of two.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone. Okay, in full disclosure.
BlackBerry.
And a BlackBerry. I have an iPad, a mini iPad, an iPhone, and a BlackBerry. I believe I have met all of my responsibilities, and the server will remain private. In order to be as cooperative as possible, we have turned over the server. They can do whatever they want to with the server. I am confident that I never sent nor received any information that was classified at the time it was sent and received. So that leaves the 100 out of 30,000 emails that Director Comey testified contained classified information. I did not receive anything that was marked as classified. Director Comey said that only 3 out of 30,000 had anything resembling classified markers.
You were the official in charge. Did you wipe the server?
What, like with a cloth or something? No. Well, no. We turned over everything that was work-related, every single thing.
No, she didn't. And it wasn't a cloth. It was bleach bit. It was acid washed. Now, all the examples I'm showing you are exactly why, according to the latest Fox News poll, 67% of likely voters say Hillary Clinton is not honest and not trustworthy. And part of the reason voters probably feel this way is because anyone who has followed the facts in this case knows that Clinton has avoided telling the truth at all costs. Now, she's claimed time and time again that she did nothing wrong when it comes to handling classified information. But back in July, remember FBI Director James Comey? Well, now they're trying to Ken Starr him. Well, he said that simply wasn't the case. Watch this.
From the group of 30,000 emails returned to the State Department in 2014, 110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined by the owning agency to contain classified information at the time they were sent or received. 8 of those chains contained information that was top secret at the time they were sent. 36 of those chains contained secret information at the time, and 8 contained confidential information at the time. That's the lowest level of classification. Although we did not find clear evidence that Secretary Clinton or her colleagues intended to violate laws governing the handling of classified information, there is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information.
Very powerful. Now, days later, Comey had this exchange with Congressman Trey Gowdy that offered more evidence that Clinton not only has not been honest, but Comey's admitting she broke laws. Watch this.
Secretary Clinton said there was nothing marked classified on her emails either sent or received. Was that true?
That's not true. There were a small number of portion markings on, I think, 3 of the documents.
Secretary Clinton said, I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email. There is no classified material. Was that true?
There was classified material emailed.
Secretary Clinton said she used just one device. Was that true?
She used multiple devices during the 4 years of her term as Secretary of State.
Secretary Clinton said all work-related emails were returned to the State Department. Was that true?
No, we found work-related emails, thousands, that were not returned.
Secretary Clinton said her lawyers read every one of the emails and were overly inclusive. Did her lawyers read the email content individually?
No.
Lie after lie, law after law broken. Now, there's also the question of if Clinton's own doing, if this is her own doing, If that doesn't sink her campaign, and she actually, God forbid, wins the White House, what happens the day after, on November 9th? Now, sources say the FBI review of hundreds of thousands of new emails will not be done before voters, before you head to the polls, now in 8 days. And the Washington Post is reporting that the FBI's agents, well, they wanted to investigate pay-to-play allegations at the Clinton Foundation, but that attempt was shut down by the Department of Justice. By the way, the same Department of Justice that we learned through WikiLeaks was colluding with the Clinton campaign, just like the State Department was, just like the White House was, and of course the liberal mainstream media. So think about the magnitude of all of this for a second. Hillary Clinton could be sworn into office while still being under investigation from the FBI, which would then put this country into a major constitutional crisis. Now, Clinton says Donald Trump, oh, he's not fit to serve in the Oval Office. But she, and she alone, has created a situation that could do severe damage to this country and the office of the presidency and prevent this country from solving problems. That means getting Americans back to work, fixing our broken educational system, fixing a broken healthcare system, fixing porous borders, vetting refugees. All of this needs to be done. Balancing a budget, stop robbing our kids. Here with reaction, Donald Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, the reason I felt it was necessary to take the time to lay this out is I'm watching the media all day. They are not telling the American people the story as it needs to be told, in her own words, the facts, related to this case. What's your reaction?
There's no question, Sean, and thank you for laying it out. You took all my talking points, by the way, but I appreciate it. Look, they're not telling the story because this story is about one woman and a pattern of conduct her entire career, which leads us to two words: Hillary first. Donald Trump's message is America first. Hers has always been Hillary first, whether it was representing a rapist in the 1970s of a 12-year-old victim and then laughing about the technique she used to get him his plea bargain the year before, whether it's her just clearing the field here in New York because she felt like becoming a United States Senator, whether it's her deciding against everybody's better judgment and the law to have her home-brewed private server, then to hide emails on it, to delete the emails, to bleach bit the emails, to lying about the emails. And now we have here, Hillary Clinton does what she always does. She attacks the messenger. They're going right after Jim Comey. This story exists because of Hillary Clinton, and I'll add on because of Anthony Weiner, two very selfish people who put their peevish political personal interest before the safety and security of the nation and have us in this conversation and this mess. And I just have a message for all the never-Trumpers. I have a message for all the undecided voters, all the independents tonight. If you truly want to break with the past, and more specifically, the cloud of corruption that is Hillary Clinton, you can't vote for her. You simply can't. I respect your ability to vote how you want, but please don't pretend that you want to make change, you want to break with the status quo, you want to move the country in a real and different direction, as 76% of Americans do, and actually vote for Hillary Clinton. The other thing, Sean, that's going on is I would imagine every focus group facility from Boulder, Colorado to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania has been booked solid for this next week, because just last week, the mainstream media was telling the Clintons, you won, it's over. He has no path. His path is narrow. His path is non-existent. Trump is finished. Landslide election for Hillary. Last week, they're ordering up their inaugural ball gowns. And this week, the Clinton campaign is in the worst communications crisis probably of the last few months.
Kellyanne, let me put up on the screen, because a big part of this also we have learned so much from WikiLeaks. For example, I'm putting up on the screen now how the WikiLeaks revelations are very specific to the Clinton server. After the discovery of the private server, the campaign suggested creating a decoy. We learned that today. The campaign press secretaries said State did a nice job with this after the release of the Benghazi emails. The co-chair of the transition team, the private email server, was blanking insane. An aide wrote, "There's no good answer to the server scandal." Podesta called Clinton's email scandal a hot mess. Podesta's daughter thought that Clinton, wipe it with a cloth comment was scary. Of course it was, because it was bleach bit and it was acid washed. The president knew about this and he lied to the American people. I'm only giving a small part of it. Then we've got to look at, and we'll keep these up on the side of the screen. Then we've got to look at, all right, well, look at the Uranium One deal now, and look at how a list was separated Clinton supporters and friends of Bill's and foundation donors so they could benefit from the rebuilding of Haiti, make money, and funnel it back to the Clintons, or the Uranium One deal that literally handed our uranium over to Vladimir Putin because of the involvement of the Clintons and the $31+ million they got to the foundation. And that would go also to, you know, the Moroccan deal, pay to play. Do you think this server was set up for their own money? That's my question.
Yes. Yes, perhaps. But look, people need to care about it for two reasons. People may be listening to me right now and saying, that all sounds great and convoluted and very confusing, but why should I care as a voter? You should care for two big reasons. Number one, you would be electing a serial liar who has been gifting and grifting most of her adult life and who used your tax dollars and your State Department as a concierge for foreign donations. Number two, you would be electing someone who puts herself and her own personal interests before your own, and we already have evidence of that. You know, Sean, I think we've been asking the right questions about the wrong candidate for months. I think when people have been talking about unfit, unqualified, bad temperament, poor judgment, they've really been talking about Hillary Clinton.
Let me ask you a last
because all
question.
signs point to that, and I don't think she's fit to be president. Look, you know, the polls were already closing last week. They were tightening last week before all this happened. In the ABC poll, we've gone from -12 to -1, and you've got 35% of the likely voters in the ABC News Washington Post poll saying they'll be less likely to vote for Hillary Clinton because of these revelations. You have Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in a tie on the attribute who cares more about people like you. That's something that Barack Obama beat Mitt Romney 82 to 10, 82 to 15. So we like the trend lines, and I think this really hurts her among those independent and undecided voters who are quite decisive about how little they trust her.
How do you get to 270? Let's assume for a minute, and I've seen early voting numbers. I've seen absentee ballots in Florida, North Carolina, Ohio. They look good for Donald Trump, especially because Republicans tend to vote day of. He will win Iowa, I believe. Then we could move out west. I think he takes Arizona. It was tough a little bit, but he seems to have recovered very nicely there. Then he has to also win Nevada. And if he gets all of those states and the states that Romney won, he's still 5 electoral votes short. Is it New Hampshire? Is it New Mexico? Is it Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan? Which other state can he win, in your opinion?
Well, you can tell where we're going by where he's going. In other words, he was in New Mexico yesterday. He was in Michigan today. He'll be in Wisconsin tomorrow. Governor Pence will be in Michigan, back in New Mexico, in Colorado. Also, Pennsylvania has always looked very promising for us, and I know it's always been a dream for Republicans, but the Trump message of renegotiating bad trade deals and creating 25 million jobs over 10 years, energy investments and unleashing energy in Pennsylvania, and certainly repealing and replacing Obamacare in a state like Pennsylvania, Sean, where the average premium increases are 53%. He was in Arizona 2 days ago, 116% increases. I mean, you can't argue with the facts. And by the way, I didn't say Jim Comey's name once. These are the issues that Donald Trump has been talking about all along. Yeah, this has nothing to do with the FBI investigation. So our path is, as you said, if we're 5 short, you could do 4 in New Hampshire and 1 in Maine's 2nd congressional district where they split them up, or Wisconsin, or Michigan, or Pennsylvania, or Colorado. So we have a lot of insurance policies in there.
By the way, I got to give you a lot of credit because you deal with the inane idiocy and ignorance on like 7 Sunday shows yesterday, and my heart went out to you as you had to suffer through. Obviously, many of the networks we now know colluding with the Clinton campaign. I'll deal with that on November 9th. Kellyanne, good to see you.
I have to tell you, it's a pleasure to do it for Donald J. Trump and Mike Pence, so I'll do it every time. Thank you.
All right, it's great to see you as always. Thank you. Coming up next on this busy news night tonight, right here on Hannity.
There was an extensive, as you know, Brett, investigation by the FBI under the direction of a wonderful and tough career public servant.
There is a very clear and extremely troubling double standard in Director Comey's actions.
All right, Democrats are really fickle. Back in July, they were praising James Comey. Now they're attacking him, going full Ken Starr on him. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, he's here with reaction and more tonight on Hannity. And welcome back to Hannity. So liberal hypocrisy, well, it might have hit an all-time high back in July. Remember, FBI Director James Comey announced that the Bureau decided not to recommend charges against Hillary Clinton. Democrats, they were praising him up the hilt and singing the praise. Watch this.
The FBI, under the leadership of Comey, carried out a thorough investigation of this case. No one can question the integrity, the competence of Director Comey.
This is a great man. We are very privileged in our country to have him be the director of the FBI.
There was an extensive, as you know, Brett, investigation by the FBI under the direction of a wonderful and tough career public servant, Jim Comey, somebody with the highest standards of integrity.
But look, I am grateful for the professionalism of the FBI and the Department of Justice.
All right, now those same libs, Democrats, they're all trashing Director Comey, going full-out Ken Starr on him because he is reopening the case, the investigation into Clinton's private email server. Now here's Hillary Clinton and her running mate Tim Kaine. Watch the little 180 they do.
There is a very clear and extremely troubling double standard in Director Comey's actions.
It's pretty strange to put something like that out with such little information right before an election. In fact, it's not just strange, it's unprecedented, and it is deeply troubling.
Wow, what a shift. Here with reaction, author of the best-selling book Treason, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, with a big smirk on his face because I've known him since 1990. Newt Gingrich, how are you? I know that smirk.
Well.
You got something fun to say. Say it.
Well, I mean, what struck me was what Comey said back in July was, she's guilty of this, she's guilty of this, she's guilty of this, she's guilty of this, but I'm not sure that she's indictable and could be convicted in a court. But and then, as you've done several times, he goes in front of the Congress and he says, oh yes, she lied about this, she lied about this. This is the person they were praising. He was already painting a picture of a person who's totally dishonest and who had done things that were clearly, by any reasonable standard, illegal. Now he comes back under enormous pressure, I'm told, by FBI agents internally, many of whom threatened to resign, and a number of whom threatened to go to the Congress as whistleblowers. And he comes back and he says, we're reopening it. Now, I have to tell you, and you and I talked about this on Friday, when I first heard this, I thought, well, what is this kind of, I mean, what does it mean? And then people began to say, and John Podesta fell right for the trap and said, release everything, put it all out there. Fine. Then it turns out by Sunday, oh, there are 650,000 emails that he's looking at. John Podesta wants him to release, I don't think so, 650,000 emails. And then we learned, and you may have already known this because your sources are so much better than mine, but I didn't realize until yesterday that there are 5 FBI field offices that are investigating the Clinton Foundation, that even when Comey was saying, we're not going to go forward on emails, he didn't say anything about over here where they had decided they were going all out with 5 different field offices investigating the foundation for fraud and corruption.
You know what's really interesting, though, today? Josh Earnest. Remember, the president was one of those praising Comey back in July. Interesting, the White House. Now, the president's been implicated in this because we learned through WikiLeaks that he was emailing on the private server. He had lied to the American people, said, oh, I learned about this in the media. I had no idea. Now we know he knew. So I suspect Barack Obama is angry, and Barack Obama doesn't want to be dragged into this mess, but he could very well be dragged into it if he knew about it. Look, even the mishandling of classified material is a violation of law. I'll put up the other laws that are applicable here on the side of the screen. Mishandling, removal. Uma Abedin signed a form called an OF-109, a separation agreement that people understand when they leave government that they are maintaining no classified information. If there's one classified bit of material, Uma is going to jail unless she cuts a deal and maybe throws her former boss or her boss down the stairs. This is much deeper. How do we get to the bottom of this in 8 days?
Well, you're not going to, but there are 2 pieces of this that are very clear. One is, I suspect, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just have this sense that the term 650,000, that the minute the president and his staff heard that's how many emails there were that they were looking at, they went, ho, I'm not touching this baby. And all of a sudden, Ernst decides, you know, Comey's doing a good job. We're proud of him. Sort of, they're throwing Hillary under the bus, just the way they structure that. The second thing is different. Forget any one thing that happens the next 8 days.
But think about
It's
this, Mr. Gingrich. 18 U.S.C. 2071. Concealment, removal, mutilation, government records, an attempt to evade. Even just the mishandling is a crime. Removal is a crime. If placing it on an unsecure server, that's a crime. 39 times. She can't recall. I don't remember being briefed because I had a concussion. What else did you forget? I'd like to know. If you're having mental issues of some kind and memory issues of some kind, I think the public would need to know that.
Well, I think it's ironic that in the 3 presidential debates, she never seemed to fail to remember everything.
About Trump.
One of the moderators might have said to her, gee, how come you got through the whole debate and didn't forget anything? But here's my deeper point. It's not just the emails, and you're right. Now, you have to have a second set over here of all of the laws that she and Bill have probably broken. If you simply take the memo that was written for them, that in 12 pages outlines, in essence, a criminal organization. I think it was Rudy Giuliani who compared it to the Gambino family and said, look, this is why we have RICO as a statute for organized crime. He said, case by case, and Andy McCarthy, who prosecuted the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, has said the same thing. This is a standard RICO organized crime case. But here's my point to the American people. You don't need to know anything more for the next 8 days. What you now know is, if Hillary Clinton is elected, like Richard Nixon, who carried 49 states and got over 60% of the vote
72.
and lasted 1.5 years. Because no matter how good the election result, if you are a criminal, if you run afoul of the system, if you have obstructed justice, the system grinds you down. And Hillary will spend, if she ever became president, she would spend the brief period of her temporary presidency and just totally entangled.
Well, the
in this
country
kind of
will
stuff.
suffer, and it will be a constitutional crisis. Look, this is the Gambino, Lucchese, what's the other one? Bonanno crime organization. And because all of the money, Uranium One deal, the Haiti deal, the Morocco deal, all of the money and access to the Hillary Clinton Secretary of State resulted in big speaking fees, big donations, big donors got connections. They made more money, and more money was funneled back into their foundation. It is so obvious what happened here. You don't need to be an FBI agent to put these dots together, Mr. Speaker. It's clear.
So maybe the Clinton campaign slogan for the next 8 days ought to be, vote Hillary and get Tim Kaine for president.
Yeah, Lucchese, banana.
I mean, I really think it is that. I really think it's that big a problem, and I don't think that they'll survive it.
Stay right there. We'll have more with Newt Gingrich. What do the polls look like to him? And then later, Doug Schoen, Peter Schweitzer, and former governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee, here to react to the latest damning reports about the Clinton Foundation. And Doug Schoen may not now be voting for Hillary because he doesn't want the country to have a constitutional crisis. He'll explain as a Democrat.
Who lied to Congress under oath. Hillary is the one who lied on so many different occasions to the FBI, and they know. Hillary is the one who made 13 phones disappear, some with a hammer. Hillary is the one who destroyed 33,000 emails.
Donald Trump, earlier today in Michigan, back with us, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. That is a funny one because I only wanted to use one device. She used a BlackBerry, iPad, iPhone, and they used a hammer to bust. I think it was 14, maybe it was 15, maybe Trump found another one. You know, they had somebody bust it up. They didn't want anyone to get it. Just like they used the bleach bit to acid wash, you know, the server that was in the bathroom of a mom and pop shop. You cannot write up. Look, you have a best-selling novel. Your imagination is not this great. It just isn't. Nobody's is.
How would you ever write a novel in which the FBI director says, well, we're done, and then about 3 months later, his agents go after a sexting problem involving interstate commerce with a 15-year-old in North Carolina, involving the husband, former congressman, of the closest friend of the Democratic presidential nominee, and they walk back in and say, we have this problem. You know, we were looking for these sexting things about this 15-year-old, and we just found 650,000 emails. What do you think we ought to do, boss? I mean, you can't make this up.
Let me ask.
It's crazy.
Let me ask you specifically. This is important because the Uranium One deal, they've got tens and tens of millions donated to the foundation. Then Hillary intervened to personally assist and approve the rights of Russia to get our uranium, which of course is used to create nuclear bombs. And then they got more money because they made money. Or the guy that got the foresting rights in whatever country in South America. Then there was the story of Haiti, and they had the list of the people that donated were going to be given favorable treatment for contracts. Then it's the Moroccan deal, where literally there's a direct quid pro quo thanks to WikiLeaks. Isn't that a conspiracy? Isn't that the pay to play? Wait a minute. You said there were 5 investigative officers? Because Comey wouldn't say if they were investigating that foundation when he was asked by Congress.
Well, the last 2 days, they've been pretty clear about it, that they have 5 different offices coordinated by the New York office, but there are 4 other offices looking into the foundation. And here's the thing people need to look at. If you take Doug Band's 12-page memo, which was a response to a challenge by Chelsea, and Band, of course, is writing this private memo saying, look, here are all the ways I'm making your parents money. You should like me. And he lists, literally, it's the Rosetta Stone of Clinton corruption. He lists all the different techniques. You dropped out, by the way, in talking about the Russians, the $500,000 speech Bill got from a Moscow bank. I mean, these guys had put together a machine.
All right, let me ask this question.
Over $100 million of net worth.
And they also personally enriched themselves with exorbitant fees, obscene amounts of money for speeches that they got. Also people that had access. Remember the AP, 55% of the people she saw as Secretary of State, the individuals, were all donors or committed money. Here's the last question. How does Donald Trump turn this into victory, that she is unacceptable? 1 week from tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, is Election Day. Nearly 30 million votes have already been cast. How does he win this election?
Look, Kellyanne Conway began to outline it perfectly in the last segment. 1, you stay positive. Contract with the American voter. A new deal for African Americans. He announced today a brand new approach to urban renewal. So part A is you stay very positive. Part B, you calmly and methodically outline the facts. You don't have to exaggerate. You just keep saying the facts. So I would say every Trump speech should have him pull the contract with the American voter out of his pocket, remind people there's a positive agreement to do positive things, and then the second half of the speech ought to describe the scale of corruption we're facing, which is a threat to the entire integrity of the rule of law in the United States. Those 2 pieces, I think, carrying to a Ronald Reagan-sized victory Tuesday a week.
All right, help me. If he wins Florida, Ohio, North Carolina, they're must-win states. He wins Arizona. He takes Nevada. He takes Iowa. He wins all the other states that Mitt Romney won. He's still short. Tell me what blue states you think are the best states to play in. Is it Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Wisconsin? What?
I've been through enough presidential campaigns. I don't believe in any of this baloney. I don't think you think state by state. There's a rising, and by the way, Larry Sabato wrote a book which explained all this, and he said, if you get a rising tide, all of these ideas about the Electoral College collapse. So if you have a rising tide, for example, of women who decide that they really care about the country's future and they can't stand the idea of the Clintons being there. You get a rising tide of African Americans who are sick and tired of being neglected. You get a rising tide of young people who care about jobs and who don't want to have a crook in charge of the United States. All of a sudden, Minnesota comes in play, Wisconsin comes in play, Michigan comes in play, New Mexico comes in play. All these things are possible in that environment.
And remember, New Hampshire and Pennsylvania are all day of. There's no early voting.
Right.
Hopefully that plays out the way you say. But
it's going to be a great
I know
week.
a lot of people are scared to death because this country will literally stop in its tracks. No progress will be made now if she's elected, because this is not going away. And I can cite, like Rudy Giuliani, the 16 laws and felonies that she is going to have to start explaining away. It'll be a disaster.
Let me close with this thought. Make America great again or make America Venezuela. That's the choice.
Did you spend all day thinking about that? That's pretty good.
No, it just came to me listening
It
to
just
you.
came to you. Sort of like Donald Trump said, now you're using Abe Lincoln a lie? That was pretty good off the top of his head. All right, coming up.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Another damning report is out about the pay-to-play practices at the Clinton Foundation. Plus tonight.
A top Democratic pollster, good guy, smart guy, sharp guy, Doug Schoen, is now totally withdrawing his support.
Donald Trump talking about our own Doug Schoen at a rally earlier today. This comes after Doug announced he can no longer vote for Hillary Clinton. He'll join us next, along with Peter Schweitzer, author of Clinton Cash, and former Governor Mike Huckabee. Straight ahead. To Hannity, only 8 days left before you. By the way, Doug Schoen just gave me this. I'll play it in a minute. The voters head to the polls. Joining us now, former 2016 GOP presidential candidate, former Governor Mike Huckabee, and the author of the New York Times bestseller, Clinton Cash, Peter Schweitzer, former Clinton pollster and Fox News contributor Doug Schoen, who just gave me this Donald Trump. What is this, a pen?
Yeah.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.
Hang on.
Look, I'm really rich. I will build a great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
All right, hang on, one more.
I don't wear a toupee. It's my hair. I swear.
This is too
I love
much.
China. I just sold an apartment for $15 million to somebody from China.
Who gave you this?
Trump supporter.
All right, here's your pen back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's pretty cool, though. All right. You've worked for the Clintons.
I have.
Tell us why you said what you said, and what did you think of Donald Trump talking about you today?
Well, first, I made it clear I couldn't and will not support Secretary Clinton. I didn't say I become a Trump supporter. I've said that I cannot vote for the Secretary of State. And the reason why is we are going to be mired in multiple investigations.
Forever.
Forever. And I don't see how she can govern if we're facing criminal investigations of her, Congress investigating her, Huma being investigated. Sean, we can't have that kind of gridlock and dysfunction at this point. And I said, you know what? I have to be intellectually honest. I haven't changed my worldview, but I have said I can't defend the indefensible.
And that leaves you Trump?
No, it leaves me on the fence because I am out of sync with Donald Trump's worldview. I disagree with him. I'm very respectful of what he said about me. I appreciate it. But you know what? I hope he respects that I did it out of integrity, not a desire to support him.
The greatest president that God ever created.
I hope that's true.
I hope that's
if
true,
in fact
too.
it happens.
Peter Schweitzer, 5 field officers, you just heard Newt Gingrich, investigating the Clinton Foundation. We now also learned that the Attorney General apparently had stopped this. That, to me, is very disturbing in light of Bill Clinton meeting with her on a plane, on a tarmac, on a plane for 40 minutes. What's your reaction, and what do people need to know about pay to play that they may not understand how this is at the foundation of all this?
Well, Sean, the key thing about pay to play that everybody has to realize is, look, we've all heard the stories about politicians who get campaign contributions from Wall Street and they introduce legislation beneficial to Wall Street. Pay to play with the Clintons is totally different because you're not dealing with American companies or American businessmen. You're dealing with foreign governments and foreign businessmen. It is essentially creating a way around the law that allows foreign oligarchs to buy influence and curry favor with our leaders at the highest levels. You've got 5 field offices investigating the Clinton Foundation. This cries out for an independent counsel. I know we don't really like them. We would prefer to have the Justice Department do its job, but it's clearly not going to happen. Loretta Lynch obviously has her ties with the Clintons going back for a while. I mean, they gave her one of her first big...
And the FBI, pressured Comey in a lot of ways. I talked to FBI special agents, and they told me they're tired of answering the question, why did they let her off the hook? Governor Huckabee, you know the Clintons well. You see this pay to play. It's not new to you.
No, it's not. And I think if any of you ever dealt with the Clinton machine, you know that it's always been about self-preservation. What Doug and Peter have both outlined, though, are the best reasons not to vote for Hillary Clinton. Number one, she can't be president because she won't have the ability to devote her total attention to the job. It's hard enough under the best of circumstances, but she's going to be constantly distracted by the investigations and the cloud that hangs over her head for criminal enterprise. Taking Peter's point, what all do they have to do to convince people that they just simply have enriched themselves by selling off America to foreign governments?
By hundreds of millions of dollars. All right, Governor, stay right there.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
When we get back, I want to ask all three of you what I asked both Kellyanne and Newt Gingrich. How does Donald Trump get to 270? This is Doug's pen, by the way.
I will be
happy to give it to you, Sean.
the greatest president that God ever created.
All right, there you have it. We'll have more with our panel right after the break. Continue with Governor Mike Huckabee, Peter Schweitzer, Doug Schoen. Governor Huckabee, walk Donald Trump to 270 electoral votes, because that's what matters.
The number one thing he's got to do, there's an old saying in politics, if your enemy is self-destructing, don't interfere. Let Hillary just continue to have to wallow in the juices of what is causing people like Doug Schoen to say, I just can't do it. That's the first thing. Stay positive. Stay focused on those key swing states, but don't allow himself to be defensive. And by the way, let's say he's done a phenomenal job over the past 10 days. He's really stayed on message. He's been focused. He's talked about the positive things. He's reminded people that this is a big contrast. If you're for abortion, even partial birth abortion, vote for Hillary. But if you believe in the sanctity of life, your only choice is Donald Trump. If you think rule of law ought to pervade in America, you got to vote for Donald Trump. If you think it's okay to have two sets of laws, one for Hillary and her pals and another for you that serve food to tables and lift heavy things, then vote for Hillary, because that's what you're going to get.
All right,
I mean, I could go through a litany, but
so
that's
you just
the key,
think it'll, you believe with Newt, a rising tide is going to pull in states that we're not thinking about today, 8 days out?
Absolutely. Right. Sean, I said back in the summer when he was at his lowest that he was going to win. I believe it. I'm going to go out there and tell you that, and I'll believe it, and I'll say it on election night.
Governor Huckabee?
No, I think this is a close enough election. He has to pick New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, potentially Wisconsin,
Michigan, Maine 2nd District.
And he needs to focus from Thursday on.
That's it.
Only on those states. And he's got to be running a local campaign to get the vote out. And he needs to be aspirational, positive. What is going to be done to bring this country together, provide leadership?
All right. Peter, I'm sorry we couldn't get your last comment in, but Donald Trump gets the last word of the segment.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.
We need your help. A question of the day, straight ahead. Thank you, Doug Schoen. He just gave me this pen. I should auction it off. Everyone's writing me they want it. Your help coming up straight ahead.